Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the November 13th meeting of the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency. We have a quorum of the board, so let's go ahead and do some roll call for the record. I'm Jim Cooper from the City of Olympia. Greg?
Greg Rutherford, Jefferson County.
Dave?
Dave Tobin, Pacific County.
Jill?
Jill Warney, Grace Harbor County.
Mike?
Mike French, Clallam County.
Randy?
Randy Netherland, Mason County.
Okay, I think that gets the board. Jeff, your team.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jeff Johnston, Executive Director from ORCA. Joining me here in the conference room are Mike Schultz, Compliance Manager, Odell Hadley, Senior Air Monitoring Specialist, Lynn Harding, Financial Services Manager, and Debbie Moody, Office Manager and Public Records Officer. Dan Nelson's upstairs running Zoom, and Chris Krauts, IT, is also online this morning. And
Jeff Myers, your legal counsel.
Great. Welcome. I have a couple. Go ahead.
Sorry, Jim, just wanted to mention, for those of us here in the room, the OWL camera and the audio system has been cutting out a little bit. So all of us here, just remember to project. That'll keep it from cutting out. And also, it's not very good when multiple people are talking. So let's just all try to not talk over each other this morning. Okay, thanks.
Great. I have a couple people on the line that must be from the public. So an opportunity if you want to turn on your camera and introduce yourself, but if not, I'll just keep moving.
Hello, this is Ken Van Busker from Belfair. Wanted to make a public comment at some point.
Okay, great. We'll get to you in a few minutes then, Ken. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I now see in Taylor's description that they're the executive assistant to Commissioner Mejia. So do you want to introduce yourself, Taylor?
Taylor, I am the executive assistant to Commissioner Mejia. She is currently in a board work session, and I will also have to bow out to do another meeting for the food and shelter. So I will come back with some notes.
Okay, please pass along that we miss having them here. Okay, thank you. Okay, so then I'm looking for an approval of the agenda.
I'll move to approve today's agenda.
Second.
I'll second.
Motion in a couple seconds. Any amendments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So that takes us to a chair report. We'll start with Greg, Finance Committee report.
Thank you, Jim. It was a great finance meeting today. Thanks to Lynn. It was good to have Laura there as well as Jeff and Debbie. And so we reviewed, as I think we're going to review a little bit more, the first quarter of the year. Everything's great. You know, we should be 25% through, but we're more like 36% through. It compares well to the last year and everything. So everything is looking a-okay there. One thing that Lynn said that I always it kind of startles me when she said it, but just to remind people that ORCA is people, and that salary is 82 to 84% of our budget or our expenses, which is I think higher than most public agencies, higher in the county for sure. But everything's going well. There will be a second quarter budget appropriation they're going to come to us with, as there was a grant awarded for a new air monitoring trailer, I believe, at Lacey's Mountain View site, which is it's way past life expectancy and built by ORCA staff, we heard as well. So that's be a great a welcome budget appropriation. And then we started looking at the forecasting that Lynn and I think Jeff as well have been putting together, and it's been a really great tool, prompted a lot of conversation. We've asked for a few, I guess, narrative adjustments, and we'll be bringing it pretty soon, I think, to the group. Some of the things that are on there just as assumptions are we're going to have some capital expenses on the building, as well as many of our cars are near end of life. We had about a 20-minute conversation about EV cars and chargers and fleet, and it was really well-rounded, and we might need to add an EV committee, I think, because there's a lot of opinions and a lot of it's a very active sector right now.
Riveting.
I think but yeah, a lot of time on it. But the forecast looks really good. It is also connected to our last topic, which was the potential contingency fund for whether it's exceptional fee revenue or just fee revenue. That conversation continues. We discussed a resolution that staff is going to evolve and bring back. There was a robust conversation and certainly not consensus on it, but we're also going to add the implications of that potential decision that likely the board will be able to discuss on that 3-year forecast as well. But the forecast looks real rosy right now. But of course, we had that, $1.9 million fine. Yeah, Jeff, what'd I miss?
Oh, well, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to remind the rest of the board members that they have access to the 3-year forecast. So in the email that Debbie sent, it had links to the finance committee meeting. And so all of the materials that Greg is describing you have access to them. So.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. But, long story short, everything is looking great. Lynn went into some of the first quarter financial statement. Some of the real volatile issues or sectors are notice of construction, which is down after being way up, and Lynn kind of walked us through how both the high rate last year kind of threw off that budget. So the percentage was higher and also the number was higher. So you kind of had a double juicing of the numbers in that. So it was great to get into more of the details. I say this mostly so more people want to be on the finance committee, and because it's a great conversation and a chance to pick the brain that makes these great financial spreadsheets for us. So unless there's any question, that concludes my finance committee report.
Okay. Thank you for your leadership and wrangling, Greg. We appreciate you. Okay, so that takes us to the December meeting. So checking in with Jeff, we both are of the opinion that we can manage our business without a December meeting. And as a reminder, our bylaws only require 10 per year. So anybody feel the need to meet in December just because? No? Okay, so hearing no objections, we'll go ahead and take December off and be back around in January. I think with an exception of Greg being the guinea pig for our regional conversations in January, you'll have to meet in December with staff. And then just wanted to take a quick minute and appreciate Jill for her service on the Clean Air Agency board. I was thinking about, I think this is 4 years, right? Not more than that. Okay, 4 years. But a wild time to be in government for sure. Like coming out of a pandemic and wrestling with air quality in a county that's struggling economically. And I think you might have the best attendance of any commissioner that I've served with in my 13 years. So I really appreciate you always being here for the conversation, regardless of where you're at on it, and bringing I think you bring a good balance and openness to the direction as long as it's prudent. And I've really appreciated serving with you, Jill.
Thank you. It's been a good experience. I've learned a lot, and yeah, coming out of COVID was extra challenging for everybody. I don't think our world has been the same since.
No.
Yeah. It's been nice working with y'all, and since we're not having a meeting next month, this will be my last meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I will say I was sad when I found out that she wasn't running again, because I very much appreciate her on this commission, this organization. She's been wonderful. Thank you very much for your time and for just your way of thinking. Just know you're appreciated here.
We do have 2 new commissioners coming that they'll be good. It's a huge learning curve when you first start, but trying to help them get up to speed a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the committee assignments will be for next time, but I'm sure you'll get somebody good.
Well, I'd just like to echo what you've heard, Jill, from myself at Orca and staff. We really appreciate working with you over the past 4 years and having your support, having your, regular attendance at the meetings, and just knowing that you're here representing Grace Harbor County with our conversations and the decisions that we're making as an agency. So thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for all the work. The field trip was fun.
Great.
More of those.
Great.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
And I agree, Jill. BC now means before COVID. Like there's this very clear line, and I can't remember any details before it.
Bad, isn't it?
Really
Yeah.
is. Well, thank you, and good luck in your next endeavors, and we'll be watching Grace Harbor prosper.
Thank you.
Okay, so that takes us to public comment. I believe we have one person. So Ken, a couple, 3 minutes at the most, and tell us why you're here.
Good morning, folks. My name is Ken Van Buskirk. I'm a longtime Mason County resident, and I live here in Belfair. This is my first Orca meeting, and I do recognize some names and faces. Commissioner Netherland, Mr. Myers. I've known them for a few years, but I haven't met any of the rest that I know of. Good morning to all the board members. I did a public records request of the Orca agency 4 months ago after I filed a asbestos complaint back in May of 2023. And then again, a year later in May of 2024. And I want to commend both Miss Moody and Mr. Downs for their professional attitude, their helpfulness, and response to my public records request. They both did thorough research and due diligence regarding what I feel is a serious asbestos compliance issue here in Belfair. In my opinion, it was a Pandora's box. It involved other local agencies, including the Department of Natural Resources and the Port of Allen. I'm sure there were other employees in your agency involved with this issue, but I wanted the board to be aware of my appreciation for your organization, for your employees, and for their obvious work ethic. And I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. That's all I have. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Ken. We appreciate you being here, even if you weren't coming with an accolade. We love having the public. So thanks for being here. Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to thank Ken as well. I'd say 95% of the public comments that I receive in various boards are when someone has done something, allegedly incorrect or they've been wronged. And so it's really heartwarming to hear when you get good service, because I know that all of our agencies try to do that. And I know that Orca really delivers. So thank you for taking the time.
Yep.
Anything else on that?
I just wanted to jump in just really quick. This is Jeff, and yes, Ken, I really appreciate you coming and sharing the good words to Debbie and to Bryson. Yeah, I know this was, we've been working on this issue with you for a while, but it's great. As folks have said, we often hear when folks are unhappy, but it's great to get the positive feedback occasionally as well. So thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning.
Thank you, Ken. And good job, Debbie and the team. Okay, that takes us to our consent agenda as 2 items. Looking for a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or polls? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Great, thank you. That takes us to unfinished business. So I'm gonna have a continued discussion of regional focus topics at upcoming board meetings, and I'm gonna turn it over to Jeff.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jim. So Dan, if you could bring up the short write-up on this topic. So again, this is something that the board discussed at the October meeting and originally was based on a conversation that Jim and Mike Schultz and I had prior to the October board meeting. And based upon those discussions and the discussion in October, wrote this up. Again, the idea just talks about the purpose of why we wanted to do this. Just the idea is that it allows us to highlight some of the regional air quality work that's going on in all of Orca's 6 counties and many other jurisdictions, many cities every day. And so this just seems like a vehicle to do that. Again, as was agreed to last month, Greg agreed for Jefferson County to go first. And so actually he and I had a brief meeting yesterday, and we've got a meeting set up in early December with me and some of the Orca team here to talk about what we might want to highlight during the January board meeting. And then we'll be reaching out to Randy sometime in early 2025 to talk about perhaps something on the March board agenda. But don't think, oh, actually, one thing that came up in the conversation yesterday with Greg mentioned if, about Orca coming and making a presentation or talking to the Jefferson County Board of County Commissioners, and that's certainly something that we're happy to do, either in conjunction with this, in terms of a regional focus at the Orca board, or frankly, at any time that you have any issues that you're working through with your Board of County Commissioners or city council member or other, the cities are working on. We're happy to come myself or figure out what's the right Orca presence at your meetings. And so again, whether that's in conjunction with this or at any other point, but we can, assuming that Greg and I and the rest of the team will talk a little bit more about that at our meeting next month in terms of whether or not we, when we want to meet with the Jefferson County Board of County Commissioners. But so I just wanted to put that out because that's not specifically discussed in the proposal, but that's certainly something we can do if you all feel that would add value.
Can I just say, I mean, I kind of threw it in there as we were talking yesterday, but I know that the Board of County Commissioners will get a lot of value out of it. I just think, anytime if we're doing it, 2 birds with 1 stone, if we can get that touch point, I think it would help amplify the message of Orca and the mission.
Great.
Well, as you're talking, I think there's you could almost institute a feedback loop into that each time one of us goes, hey, I'm going to be presenting to Orca about the activity in our community next month. Anything you'd like me to think about or include or feedback you'd like me to pass along to Clean Air Agency, and then come back around and do the presentation within a month to the board, just like you did. I think that's a great idea.
Yep.
So my big question is about the 3 cities, and given that there's only one here, I don't know if we can dispense with it today, but I don't know that there's enough difference between the 3 big cities that are on the board by law, but maybe having the 3 cities go together in a joint way would make sense. But I don't know if you had a chance to talk about that anymore at the staff level, Jeff.
No, have not. But haven't given it a whole lot more thought. But Jim, it may be something you and I can chat a little bit more about, but yeah, I would love to get Commissioner or Council Member Stedman and Council Member Kathy's thoughts on that as well, and certainly Commissioner Mejia or Commissioner Klaus's thoughts on it.
Well, maybe let's try and talk about that after we do the first one, and we got to get a better idea of what that kind of plays out.
Yeah, but Jim, you had mentioned at one point perhaps doing kind of like the cities, so Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater, kind of work with them 1 month, and then in another month would do Thurston County.
That feels right to me.
Yeah.
Then you can highlight some more urban situations that might apply to other cities in one meeting or weekend. Right. I also think we should make a request to change the legislation so that we aren't off balance the way we are. I don't know if that's something we could work into the legislative session next year or not.
Well, yeah, let's have.
Just since I have the microphone.
We'd have to figure out, because we don't want the board to get too big, and I know that's, I think, one reason why the State Clean Air Act, RCW 7815, specifies how it does, because counties that have, I think, four counties, it's a county commissioner and the council member from the largest city in each county, and then there's an at-large, so that brings them to 9. But with 6 counties, we wouldn't, I mean, we want a 13-member board. I mean, so the board starts getting large. So I think we would want to have some discussion about, yeah, so what is the right mix?
No, and
certainly
I wouldn't want to
understand-
make it bigger. I just say that it should be a representative from the largest city in each of the 3 largest counties. And that gets you Aberdeen or Hoquiam, Port Angeles, and Olympia, maybe, right?
So that you have the largest population cities, the 3 largest, and limit one
No
per
one
county.
county can have more than one city.
No-
That-
no-
and really,
no county
that's
can have more
maybe
than one
that should
city.
be the rule. I mean, yeah. But I don't know if there's a agent. Well, let's park that because that's not what we're talking about now, Chair Cooper. So,
But I like it.
and maybe Jeff, under your report, we could just sit on the legislative session and see if there's a way to bring that into the air agency conversation with your colleagues at all.
Sure, yeah, actually, there's a meeting this Friday down in Vancouver, so I will talk with them about that.
Any other comments on this proposed outline and path forward for more of regional focus during our meetings? Anybody feeling like it will make the meeting better or worse or care at all?
It'll be great.
So you have to go now, Jill, before. No.
Or you have to come back to a meeting in 2025 when Grays Harbor County is spotlight.
You do that, yeah, right, eye roll. Okay, so it sounds like we have something to test and we'll keep it living and modify as we go. Greg and Randy, thanks for testing it out for us. So in January, we should pick who goes after Randy so that we know the cycle. Okay. Okay, that takes us to the executive director update.
Okay, back to me. So a number of things I wanted to update the board on, some staffing updates. Jay Carmody, our inspection supervisor, left the agency in mid-October. So that position is again vacant. We expect to go out advertising for that position here in the coming days, maybe even later today. We'll get that posted on the website. So, and then also again, as Lynn shared last month, she will be retiring at the end of April. And so been busy working on getting that position refilled. So the position has been posted for a little over 3 weeks. As of yesterday, had more than 20 applicants. So that's encouraging. Haven't had much time yet to do any screening, but that's my next step. Be looking at those next week. And then hopefully schedule interviews in early December. And my goal is to have an offer made and somebody starting sometime in January. So there's a good amount of overlap with Lynn. Again, that's kind of in the heat, in the middle of putting of our fiscal year 2026 budget together. And so having somebody on board with a couple months, at least 2 months of overlap with Lynn, I think is really important. So that's a major focus. We've also been advertising for a building maintenance technician. That is actually, Lynn and I hit pause, or I hit pause on that. One of the things I'm looking at is the agency contracting out for commercial property management. So as you all know, we own the building. We occupy a little over half of it. We have 7 tenants. I'm looking at what the cost would be to essentially hire a commercial property manager to work with us to manage our tenant relationships and also manage the building maintenance. So that's because that's a fair amount of time that Lynn spends on that. And so she and I've had conversations with 3 different commercial property managers. We're meeting with one next week. So expect to hear back from me on this in the next few months, but it's something that we're looking at. And again, if we do move in that direction, then we wouldn't need to hire a part-time building maintenance technician. So that's why that position is on hold, at least for the moment. And then the other position, yes, Jill.
I would just be really clear on what your expectations are for building maintenance, because property management is not known to be very good at maintenance.
Yes, thank you for that caution. And yes,
I'm
we
not
are.
sure that would take the place of what you're thinking.
Okay, that's a good caution. So yes, at this point, we're very much in the exploratory phase. So yeah, not ready to make any decisions at this point. So the other hiring that we're doing, I'll let Mike update you during his compliance report, but we've got an open air quality specialist now, so he can update you on that. So a few of the things I wanted to mention. I'm sure you remember that Orca updated our rules regarding recreational fires in Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater. We removed that prohibition in March 2023. That prohibition on recreational fires had been incorporated into Washington State Implementation Plan in 2013. And again, the state implementation plan is an ecology document that EPA approves that basically describes how the state is going to manage air quality. And because our rule had been incorporated into the state implementation plan, ecology and EPA have been working for the past year or so on updating the SIP. And so that process is nearing the end. It's now open for public comments. So Dan can put a link to the Federal Register notice in the chat if anybody's interested in looking at it, but just know that process is continuing. And it doesn't impact Orca or our rules. Those were approved, as I said, well over a year ago. But it's just kind of it's a bureaucratic exercise that EPA and ecology are going through. Let's see. The next thing I'll mention is the Orca Database Committee has been busy, making good progress on moving toward replacing our functional but outdated existing database. We had 2 product demos last week that were both very impressive in terms of the amount of the functions, the functionality, the things that they'd be able to do. We're currently working on the database committee working on putting together a request for proposals that we're hoping to get out either probably late next month or likely more like January. But we were impressed not only with the products and what they can do. Obviously, there'll need to be some customization, but really off-the-shelf products, but also the price, the time to implement them and the price points that the companies were talking about were well within, frankly, the contingency fund that we already have set aside for this project. So that was encouraging. So stay tuned for more on that. On October 29th, EPA announced that it had selected applications for the Clean Ports program. This is a program with funding from the Inflation Reduction Act. So 7 ports in Washington received awards. The only one in Orca's jurisdiction was the Port of Port Angeles. But the port is set to receive almost $9.5 million for vessel shore power upgrades and to electrify cargo handling equipment. So that's really exciting for the Port of Port Angeles. I reached out to Port Director Paul Jarkowitz I hadn't had a chance to introduce myself, but introduced myself to the director. And we had a good conversation, and he shared some of the things that the port has, other things that they've got in the works. And so we're in conversation with them to see if there's, again, things that Orca can do to support their efforts, and looking at a visit up to the port sometime in early 2025. So excited about that. Just like to thank the Olympia Police Department. On October 23rd, Rebecca Zeismer from Community Programs and Officer Clark and their companion Bentley joined us here at Orca for office workplace safety training for dealing with potentially hostile public and active shooter training. That's something we do every couple of years, but really appreciate the City of Olympia coming and doing this training for us here at Orca. Speaking of training, Mr. Myers joined us on October 30th for a deposition training here for staff. with several cases we have moving through the Pollution Control Hearings Board process, and including staff being deposed on various things. We wanted to do kind of a general staff training on that. So thank you, Jeff. That was, I think, really valuable and very timely, given some of these things that are moving through the process.
We had a good one go yesterday.
Yes, great. Just wanted to mention that there's been a fairly high, I know Ken talked about some public disclosure work, public records requests that we've been fielding. But so both Debbie and Tiffany Flores, our record specialists, have been dealing with a lot of requests lately. So, and Tiffany is really doing great work in coming up to speed and looking forward to, at some point before too long, her taking over as the agency's official public records officer. So great work, Debbie and Tiffany. I alluded to a few minutes ago, I'll be down in Vancouver on Friday for the next Washington Air Directors meeting. Again, we get together every couple months. So I'll look for an opportunity to bring up this possibility of legislative changes, although we're the only 6-county jurisdiction local. So my guess is that my counterparts won't have a lot of thoughts on it, but I can certainly bring it up. We will be talking actually about upcoming legislative session. In fact, folks from Department of Commerce will be meeting with us as well, because Department of Commerce is responsible for putting together the local government fiscal notes during session. So anyway, we'll be looking forward to talking about session on Friday. And I think, and then just also mention that in early December, I'll be up in Seattle for a 2-day meeting with the Pacific Northwest Air Directors meeting that EPA pulls together every year for Region 10 states. So the air directors and staff in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Alaska together. And that's what I have for you. Unless there are any questions, I can hand it off to Mike for the compliance manager update.
Questions for Jeff? So I just guess timing is bad, given that our other two cities aren't here, and the session starts in January around a legislative request to change the Clean Air Act for our representation from cities. So wanted to see where the board that's here is on that. You know, it seems to me like we should at least talk about it as a board with one more city here before we directed the director to go forward. But maybe just take a minute and see where people that are here are on that conversation. No one cares but me. Okay.
Well, then I'm sorry, Randy, go ahead.
I care. I think you have the right idea. I think you're in the right direction. I think it would be better to allow for a little more opportunities for other voices. But as you said, I also don't want to step on anybody. And not having them here to have that discussion makes it a little hard. But I do want you to know that I do agree with you.
Okay.
So I'll just
Go ahead, Jeff.
So I can let other directors know that we're having this, the board is having this discussion. I mean, frankly, with session coming up in January, I wouldn't see anything moving this session. It would be more like preparing for next session. So Puget Sound Clean Air is the only agency that actually has a lobbyist, and I think I'm not sure if she'll be there in person, but I can look to talk to Joanna Grist about this and see kind of what a process would be for it. But I mean, I think,
yeah, and I would just say if they're opening up the act, we should try to amend. But if not, it's a great mid-biennium or end of biennium policy bill. So that makes sense to me. Okay, thank you. So let's go to Mike.
Okay, hello, everyone. I'll jump right into the inspector team. We've finished, as Jeff mentioned, we're in the process of finding some air quality specialists. We finished some career review interview on the phone with some. We're gonna have hopefully 5 good candidates come in on the 21st and 22nd of November. And with that, hopefully we'll be able to pull one out and have them start somewhere in December, because we are losing Nancy, our air quality specialist 3, December 20th. So we'd like to get somebody on board then. So we've been busy with that. We also, if you guys remember the UW students that came in and talked on teams through the board meeting, I think last month or the month before. Last month. Yeah, so we had Margot Goulet, and I may have butchered her name, and Emma Wren. They joined our inspection team meeting a couple weeks ago. It was a real good conversation we had with them about construction and air quality around that, and Orca's role in air quality on constructing and developing large sites. So that was really good, and they followed up with us, we followed with them, and we had a good interaction. So kudos to them for seeing it through, and they had mentioned that we were the only ones who they've met with so far, and we're the most responsive. So kudos to the board for welcoming them, and also to staff for having some good interaction with them. So, nice to have the students get involved. Engineers, Abby Roberts, our engineer 1, passed her EIT test, and that may just sound like a test, but that's a real big thing, or engineering training. Big accomplishment. Engineers have to get that first before they then put in some experience and then eventually take their engineer test. So kudos to Abby for passing that and one step closer to getting her engineer license. Ecology every 3 years does an overview performance audit. Basically, it's an audit of the AOP program. This is that 3rd year where they're doing it, and Jennifer is working with Ecology on that and gathering up some data that they want. I believe end of November will be when they want all of the data that we provide them, basically on violations, timeliness, and things like that with our AOP program. So after she gets them the data and they do the report sometime next year, I'll come back to you with hopefully the good report that they said Orca did well. But we'll wait for the report, and I'll be sure to brief you on that when we get it. The last thing, this is kind of a little bit of a soapbox, but I'll keep it short. We've had an uptick in having to write violations for cities, counties, public businesses, all putting in equipment that generates emissions before, or at least starting construction before we issue a notice of construction permit. There's been several of those recently, and it's been all across the board, cities, counties, colleges, private places. So I just want to take this opportunity to let the board know that, if anybody in business in your area is going to be installing anything that has to do with any emissions, paint booths, backup generators, anything, crematories, coffee roasters, whatever, they should talk to us early. And we do require a notice of construction, if they don't do that, then it can open them up for a violation notice and a penalty. And as I said, we've had an uptick in that. And along with that, if any of you would like us to come talk anytime to your county, to your city, to any planning departments, anything, zoning, they're kind of involved early on, plannings with SEPA and stuff. We'd be happy to do that, but it's a function of the engineers doing the permits and the inspectors doing, unfortunately, the violations. But we've had an uptick, as I've said, I guess, but I'd like to, get that word out that we need to have some education out there so people know, don't just go put in a backup large generator for your business, or don't go throw in there's a million different things, a welding, plasma table or whatever. If they're talking through the planning departments, they probably, and there's any equipment going in, they might want to talk to us also.
And we have a couple of years ago, we put together a couple focus sheets on this. So I don't know, Dan, if you could maybe grab those focus sheets off the web and put those links into the Teams chat. But so yeah, as Mike said, we have seen an uptick in this, and we certainly want to get, want to be doing everything we can to get the word out about the fact that, again, and air permits are a little different than other types of permits. They They do need to be issued before construction. They're pre-construction permits as opposed to pre-discharge permits that just have to be issued but before you start emitting something, but these are pre-construction permits.
And it's good, it's something to know that the definition of construction per EPA is any type of ground prep and wiring, trenching, concrete work. So it's not just hooking up something, it's actually starting the prep work from the side up. So we'd like to, we should be in early on the process to avoid violations if we can. And whatever we can do to help, help the cities and the businesses, we'd like to be, upfront, early and often was our past director used to say all the time. We'd like to be involved in that.
Gosh, EPA should tell Fish and Wildlife that policy. It sounds like a good one. Sorry.
Yeah, they probably a few different, agencies need to talk, but we're available to talk where we can, so. I always like to talk and give some information if we have that opportunity.
Well, I would
So
just
then-
suggest that folks reach out, like if you have a local council of governments or metropolitan planning organization that you, in your county, that you have Orca come and do try and get them on the agenda to do a high level overview of the agency and what it does around asbestos demolition and air permits. Cause I think there's just been a lot of turnover. To Jill's point earlier, we're PC post COVID and no one remembers anything before 2020. So.
But we're certainly available to join meetings. So yes, so please keep us posted and invite us to attend meetings and to help get the word out.
So I'd like to just follow up with a couple little things from the compliance team, which is, these are things that both inspectors and engineers work on. And one is they're finishing up in all the site inspections for the Title V sources. I think we have 11 now, 11 or 12. And that's a big part of the summer and fall. They've all got those done. They're just wrapping up some final reports on those. So good job on the inspectors and engineers. And then we also, Jill mentioned the field trip to Silver Springs. Well, we actually had Southwest Clean Air engineer come up, and our staff went down there, our engineer and inspector Nancy and I think Lauren, could be wrong on that. But anyway, they went down and met with the engineers from Southwest Clean Air at Silver Springs. So Silver Springs has been open for, showing people, and their Southwest was expecting a permit coming through, a notice of construction for a large composter, and they knew we had one. So we met them out there and kind of the facility gave them a show what went on, and then our engineer and inspector talked to them about what they could expect, how we permitted it and how it went. So good cooperation with the Southwest Clean Air folks, because evidently they didn't have any large composters like that. So the showcase in the area, I guess.
Good.
And with that I'm open for questions. Comments, questions?
Anything else for Mike? Thank you, sir. Odell.
Okay, Dan is pulling up slides. So, our monitoring report for October 2024. Next slide, Dan. So this, I think most of you are familiar with this plot now, our new method of summarizing the air quality at all of our sites. You'll notice that in mid-October, we saw some yellow in Lacey, Port Angeles, and Raymond. They weren't in the dark yellow, so still the light yellow, so fairly good, and possibly under old AQI, they might have even been green. So if you'll recall, once EPA put in the new NACs for PM 2.5, I mentioned we'd start seeing a little bit more yellow in our daily PM 2.5. But one of the things I just want to point out here, Chica Peak is solidly dark green all the way across. That means it's under 5 micrograms per meter cubed every day. This is what we expect for a background clean site. And we almost had the same thing in Raymond, except for 2 days at the very end of October and then the October 15th. And so if you go to the next slide, we're going to focus on, oh, that's a weird view, but
Okay.
Yeah, hey, Dan, you did something that went to presenter view.
There we
There you
go.
go. But,
And then this
but it's
plot is
not
not
showing all.
filling up all the way for whatever reason. Oh, that's unfortunate. Go back to presenter view, that was better. There, I guess if you can see what that slide is supposed to look like.
Yep, so if you go to the next slide now, Dan, that should move the spotlight on Raymond.
Oh, weird.
Weird.
Don't have the peak.
Well, I can still talk about it. So this was the day, this was October 15th. And you'll see that at 10 a.m., the PM 2.5, the numbers started going up. These are hourly averages. So, went into the moderate, went into the unhealthy for sensitive groups, which is over 35 micrograms per meter cubed. And then it went into the unhealthy for an hour and dropped back down. And, I don't spend every hour checking at all the monitors. So I wanted to highlight this day because it really showcased how different agencies all work together on our air quality. I got an email from the Department of Ecology Air Program that said, "Hey Odell, what's going on in Raymond? Is the monitor broken?" And when we see red on our monitors, we almost always think first, there's a spider or something in there and the monitor's not working properly. Are you trying to fix it, Dan?
Well, folks probably.
Yeah, hang on.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
gonna go
So
to the,
that's fine. The PDF maybe is gonna work better. Yeah,
There
there we go. Yay. So, you can see that hourly average was really quite high in Raymond, which we typically see down there in the green where you see the data. So I contacted, Mike Schultz, who lives in South Bend, and I asked him if he knew of anything going on down there. Because as far as I could tell, the monitor was working properly, and Mike was here and said, yeah, I called around and nobody knows anything. But then you drove through Raymond on your way home that evening and noticed quite a lot of smoke in the area. So we do think that was definitely real. And so that was Ecology and Orca working together on that. And then I want to bring in the Department of Natural Resources. So I participate in Monday and Thursday morning calls where we talk about upcoming birds that are permitted by the Department of Natural Resources. And they have a lot of burn permits. And in that week, they had over 55 burn permits just in Orcas region. And these are, the really big land clearing burn permits. And so this was not one of theirs, but they knew about it. And somebody else on the call, one of the other burners, said, oh yeah, that was someone who was burning, larger piles than they were supposed to, but it wasn't one of our permits. And we didn't get any complaints on it. So by the time, we learned this, it was after the fact. And so, nobody was sent out, but I just wanted to sort of highlight that we do work in concert with lots of different agencies to try and solve these little mysteries, and it puts a little bit of interest in our day sometimes. So yeah, that was our day in Raymond. And next slide. So just the rest of the monitoring highlights for October. For Cheekapeake, we have no new news on our power status updates, but we still have power, so we're still just swinging along and hoping for the best. We have finalized, or we are in the process of finalizing a memorandum of agreement with the Makah tribe. We have been operating up there, really unbeknownst to me or any of us, including the tribe, without a memorandum of agreement to have our site on their land. I was able to find an old draft that would have expired in 2012, which was the year I started here. And so after meeting with the tribe about the power, the new director of fisheries, I think, said, do we have an MOA with you? And Courtney's their site operator. I don't know. So we are rectifying that. We think it's a really good idea to have a formal written agreement with everybody's duties on it. So that will be fixed. Chris Kraus, our IT guy, came up with me for his first visit to Cheekapeake back in October. He was updating our inventory, and we have a lot of equipment up there. So he took that as an opportunity to do a site visit. He also helped me out. I had him rebuild a pump and then replace a pump, which he did. And that was fun. and fixed a few things. So that was a good visit. We had good weather. Lacey visits were done. Want to point out the ozone season is done, so I won't be showing you any more ozone data until next summer. Port Angeles needed a site visit. We had to replace a data logger, so we lost some data there. I think one in a couple days in September and then one in October. Did a site visit to Port Townsend, and we're also drafting the MOA with North Thurston School District for putting the new shelter in at Lacey. So once I actually got a signed copy of that back from them this morning. So once that is signed and official, I can start working on the request for bids to get that new shelter in. So there's a chance that could be happening in summer of 2025, but it's looking more like it might not happen until 2026, just depending on how quickly we can move through the bureaucracy of all of these things. And that is all I have for monitoring, unless you have any questions.
Questions for Odell? I'm just curious on MOAs, are they like interlocal agreements that need to be adopted by the board? Government to government?
I believe the McCall one should be.
Oh, Jeff is the best one to answer that.
The MOA with Lacey's not adopted as an interlocal, but the one with the McCaws, I think we do want to have that adopted by the group.
Okay.
So it might be good to make a connection, council to council, even if it's just a quick Zoom, Jeff, just to, since we'll be the signers of that.
We'll have to get the Macaw involved with that as well, the tribe, whoever's signing for that,
Yeah.
I think.
So, yeah, we can try to figure out, what the process is around that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Odell. Great. Dan.
So sorry for the PowerPoint glitch there. I know better. I should have stuck with PDF to start with. But moving on, keeping in the mode that Ken gave us, and thank you for the great comments to our staff. I want to give kudos to Jefferson County Public Works staff. As I noted in my communications report, Chelsea Kilmer with the Public Works Department was instrumental in helping us find a great solution to a potential problem with our wood stove program. Part of our grant is requirement of certifying destroyed wood stoves that go into the recycle or replacement program. So they have to go to a metal scrapper, and we, as an agency, require that the scrapper sign a certificate of destruction showing that the stoves are destroyed and not getting back into circulation. The for-profit auto salvage and metal scrapping facility in Jefferson County had some disconnect between the staff and the owner of that facility, and some of the staff weren't willing to participate. Jefferson County Public Works, their solid waste division, stepped up and said, we'll take those stoves, we'll instruct our staff to sign the necessary documents. And it's worked. We've had at least one go through the process. So Chelsea was a fantastic resource for me, and I really appreciate that. So it was a little, I actually made a trip up to Port Townsend, visited the for-profit facility as well as Public Works, and Public Works was great. So Greg, know your staff is doing a great job and helping us out.
Chelsea's great, and I'll pass on the kudos. Thanks for.
Yeah, as Ken did, I like to pass on kudos to public workers who are doing great work. So
sounds like a new regional revenue source to me.
And our HVAC vendors up there are on board and appreciate that too. So there's good news all around on that. So really appreciate Jefferson County's participation. Other news on the wood stove program, we're doing great work. I anticipate we're going to fully expend that fund by the end of the fiscal year. It looks like most of our partner agencies around the state will do the same, and we'll be looking for equal or greater money in the next biennium. Other than that, I know I've talked in the past about our cooperation with the Northwest Air Quality Communicators and developing a resource sharing service so that we can have better unified messaging and resources on joint things or issues of common interest like wildfire smoke, asbestos, outdoor burning, wood stove, recycling and replacement. We've put out a RFP managed by the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency, but the Northwest Air Quality Communicators are the driving force. Looking for a contractor to provide a platform for resource sharing as well as for content development for programs of joint interest. So by contributing a modest amount, I think $5,000 in this budget cycle, we're leveraging that to a $56,000 program. So, and that RFP is out right now, and we will be evaluating. Orca's on the executive committee of that, and we'll be doing the evaluation of the bidders and issuing the contract in early December. Other news, probably the big thing for me will be next week. I'll be going out to Shelton High School, Shelton School Districts, and doing some in-classroom education with junior, senior, and I think a AP science class. So, and we've got some Purple Air monitors we're gonna help them install at the Shelton High School and make sure that air quality is part of the science curriculum moving forward. So those are the highlights. There's a little more detail in my printed report, but if you have any questions, let me know.
Questions for Dan? Just Dan, high level, the RFP, how is that different from a file sharing service? Like, what are you looking for above and beyond what you could get on the open market that way?
So it's a resource sharing. So it's a dedicated platform that's specific to us, and it's I like to say we're currently using Google Drive. We've used Teams Drive, or actually we're using Teams now. We previously used Google Drive. I like to say that's throwing a pile of books into a room, whereas we're looking at a library with a organized filing system.
That makes sense. That's very good description. Thank you.
Well, and also, I mean, you're looking for content creation, so it's not just the it's not just the storage system and organizing system, but looking for a company to come in and create some of these shared messaging, some of the shared content.
Communications.
Yeah. So the core is developing the platform for resource sharing, but then a secondary, large component is providing the resources we need as small agencies to do content creation, so that if we need some graphics to push out about wildfire smoke education, we have a resource we can tap into and have a quick response. And as an executive committee member or as a funder of the program, we have unlimited access to that.
Cool. Thank you. That's great. Okay. All right. Thank you, Dan. Bring us home, Lynn.
Okay, no problem there. So good morning all, nice to see you. A few items, so Greg did a great overview of the first quarter financial report for fiscal year 2025. And I too encourage you to view those reports. Everyone has access to them, and including the forecast, the 3-year forecast, another wealth of information there for you to review. Questions, bring them back. We're happy to entertain any questions on those. And it's always nice, and we're pleased to provide it was a good report. It was a positive report for the first quarter, and it was nice providing that information. We touched on a little bit at the Finance Committee that staff will be bringing a budget amendment to the board early next calendar year. With the anticipation of new federal funds that briefly Odell had talked about, and it has to do with EPA's Inflation Reduction Act revenue. The funds are going to allow Orca to purchase a new monitoring trailer for our Lacey air monitoring site. So looking forward to that. That's gonna be an exciting venture. By the time we meet again in January, auditors with the Washington State Auditor's Office should be in place, visiting Orca's office, conducting their biannual audit of Orca for fiscal year 2023 and fiscal year 2024. Expect to receive an informal letter from Debbie via the State Auditor's Office alerting you of the required audit. Building operations and maintenance. So Jeff touched on, we did advertise for the maintenance technician. We received 11 applicants for that position. We'll see where it goes. We move forward on that, or the property management. I'll definitely keep you informed there. Tenant community. So we have one vacancy that will be occurring mid-December. And the tenant is moving out by mid-December. We continue to advertise for the office space that includes a little over 1,100 square feet, and we're renting it for $1,500 a month. Excellent deal, great opportunity, great area. So share the information with anyone looking for it. Bring them our way, send them our way. And last, Orca will be submitting our agency wellness or Well City application to AWC by the end of December. And this is an annual event. It earns the agency a 2% reduction in our medical premiums. Those reductions are passed on to the agency and any staff members who are contributing towards their family and dependent coverage. And, Orca Wellness Committee, they work hard all year long, bringing and building, providing healthier options for our staff. They work hard at it. We just like to send a thanks for letting us do this. We need your support in this endeavor, and it's an important benefit that's provided to the staff as well. We all need a little help every once in a while. So, but that's all I have for you. If you have any questions, happy to entertain them.
Questions for Lynn? A lot of her work was presented by Greg early on in the meeting as well. So
Yeah, thank you.
thank you, Lynn. Just checking
And just
in.
a shout out to Jill. I just want to do a shout out to Jill. Thank you, Jill, for last 4 years. Thank you.
Okay, I was just taking a look at the chat and make sure there was nothing we needed to move back into the conversation. So there's just a few things for staff there, and for board, there's links to some of the things that we've talked about, like partnerships and notifications. I believe, is there anything for the good of the order? Jeff, any need for executive session? Okay. So then we are adjourned, but one change that we will not be meeting December 11th. We'll pick up and meet again in 2025. And Jill, thank you for your service. Have a good month, everyone.
Happy
Thanks,
holidays.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.